Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Two Likeable Guys. We sure do appreciate all your support. Downloads, likes, happiness, smiles, waves, jumping up and down for us. We appreciate that greatly. So if you're jumping up and down for us, you're our friend. Today we are continuing the very intriguing question, very intriguing information finding, fact finding mission of, is God still in the miracle business? And we get to talk with the amazing Dr. Adam Clagg. He is the senior pastor at Covenant Church in Lakeside or Soddy Daisy, and we're going to see what he has to say. So let's go to that now. Well, today we're going to welcome a very special guest, cousin of the co-host Josh. Today we will be talking with Dr. Adam Clagg, the senior pastor of Covenant Church in Soddy Daisy. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I wanted to get some expert opinion. And the question that's on my mind is, God still in the miracle business?
That's a good one. That's a good one. So great. Thank you for inviting me on your extremely popular podcast. I'm
Thank
jealous
you.
because you have more listeners than I do on my podcast. So
Well,
um,
and you're welcome to promote your podcast.
every pastor podcast is the name of ours, and me and a pastor friend of mine. There wasn't really many podcasts for pastors, and so we just made. And most churches, as you know, are smaller churches. Most churches in the world are, out there in the rest of the world are, 100 or less people. So most pastors are solo pastors. We're out,
Right.
out there by ourselves. So we have a lot of stuff we think about, kind of like what you've been thinking about. We think about stuff and we talk about, and we think, well, we wish we had somebody to talk to about
Right.
what we're thinking about. And so we have our subtitle is it's the Every Pastor Podcast, and we say we talk about what pastors are thinking about.
Okay,
And so
great.
he and I just, it's pretty casual, like your podcast is. We just talk to each other and think about this and that. And I appreciate you letting me plug my podcast too. But I've listened to a couple of y'all's episodes. I like the format you got, and
Well,
uh,
Josh makes it
content.
sound pretty good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's why I told
It's,
Adam. I said I'm the technical part of the deal.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
let
And
I
Yeah.
let
and
Steve do most of the talking.
And
yeah,
that's good. That's important because no one wants to listen to a podcast that sounds like crap.
yeah,
So
Josh is an expert.
yeah,
I
when
wouldn't
it
go that
sounds good,
far.
it's a whole lot better.
Right. But
Yeah.
I know. And I guess here's a good way to start this out. In the Bible,
Yeah.
and then correct me if any of this is wrong, because I am not a doctor of theology. I am just an interested
Yeah.
Christian, I guess is my term. And so, in the Bible, Jesus, I believe, gave authority to the disciples to perform miracles.
Yeah.
And after that, did that miraculous power end with them, or is it still available today to people? What's the deal?
Yeah. That's a good question because we all want to know. Well, we all pray. We have things that we can't fix ourselves.
Right,
If we believe in God, we call out to Him, and sometimes we see an answer, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we see something happen quickly, sometimes slowly, and it's we never really know why things happen, but yet every now and then we see these things happen, and you're like, man, I just can't explain that. There,
right,
and so biblically, going back to the Bible times, Jesus, calling the 12 disciples, and absolutely, he told them, when he was part of their training, and he was teaching them. Historians tell us that he was teaching them and training them for about 3 years before the crucifixion. So it's a long time to be an apprentice, is really what a disciple was.
Right.
So he was teaching them and showing them how to, how to do this, how to do that, uh, and because they were all normal guys, none of them were professional, scholars or anything like that. When he called the different disciples, so he spent a lot of time teaching, and then they got to a point, just like an apprentice you would have in any line of work, that's their time to go out and do. And there came a point when you're reading the New Testament, the first four books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are the Gospels, the stories, the story of Jesus. And yeah, you see where he says, I have authority, because he was, God the Son.
Right.
He goes, I have all authority, he goes, and I give you authority to go and to cast out demons and heal the sick, and you see different interesting stories where they go out, and sometimes they go out in pairs. They go out two by two and go do ministry, and then come back, tell me how it went. And sometimes it went great, sometimes it didn't.
Right.
Sometimes there's one story where they came back and there was a boy that was looks like, when you read the story, it probably had epilepsy. The way it describes how he would, start having seizures and foaming at the mouth and things. And the father complained, said, "You sent your disciples to heal my child, and they didn't heal him." And Jesus said, "Well, you don't have enough faith." Talking to everyone, and
Right.
then Jesus healed them. And so, really, it goes back to, when you think about that time, first century Jerusalem, Judea, that area of the world, and what Jesus was doing. And then today, I think, well, is there a difference? Well, is there a difference between them as followers of Jesus and us as, we're believers in Jesus too. We're followers of Jesus. And the way I've always looked at it when I read through it, and they healed, they did miracles happened because of the authority he gave them, and they did things in his name.
Right.
And so they didn't have it within themselves.
Correct.
And just like when we pray, we end most of our prayers in Jesus' name. We and then when we're doing good work, we say we're doing this because we're Christians, because we're
Right.
people of faith, in His name. So that's what I think, that even then, that there weren't people that were just miracle workers,
Right. Okay.
that were faith healers. So I don't think that that's who they were, that was their only job,
Right.
that they were healers. And just like today, I don't think that there are people who that's their thing. They're faith healers.
Right.
Because the guys that claim to be so, um, usually they're on TV asking for money.
This is
And I'm
true.
thinking, why are you on TV asking for money? And we should be at the hospital, going from
Right.
room to room, healing people, if that's your thing. There's
Yeah.
other people who are really good at raising money for charity and things. Let them do that. There's some that are really good at preaching. Let them do that. But hey, if you can heal people, I'll support you. I'll take you. I'll drive you around hospital to hospital. But I do pray for the sick.
Right.
We pray for the sick. Um, I lay hands on the sick when people ask me to, and we've seen people healed. Miracles happen. We've seen God do things in ways He does answers in ways we wouldn't expect Him to.
Right.
So I don't know if that's kind of a long answer to a short
No.
question.
No.
But it would answer the question.
That's a very good. So what I'm getting
Yeah,
is that and I guess it comes with my own beliefs too, that I think that God is still in the miracle business
absolutely.
today as he was then. And I think to an extent, all of his followers have, I don't want to say the power, but they have the knowledge of how to hopefully ask God for that miracle to happen.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think you have the. I don't think we have the power, of course,
Right.
because the disciples didn't even have the power, as you
Exactly.
explained.
Yeah.
They did it in Jesus' name. So I
Right.
think we have the power to petition God for a miracle,
Right.
but I think ultimately it's God's choice
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
whatever His will and divine plan needs to happen. It will happen.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's part of the idea of miracles. And really, if you believe in God, then it's easier to believe in miracles.
Right.
That most religions, have some aspect of spirituality, of that's something that's outside of nature, supernatural.
Right.
Most religions, do that, and of course, Christianity especially, because you have the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, and the very first few words, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I mean, that's miraculous right there. You see
Right.
a deity, a something that, this person, God, that's very different than any of us because he can do something none of us can do.
Right.
He can create something out of nothing. I can build something, I can make something, I can do something with my, make something with my hands or create, write poetry. I know Josh, can make, music. I mean, that's things we can make. We can do interesting things, but none of us can make something out of nothing.
That
And
reminds me of a very, very good joke that I'm going to butcher,
yeah,
but I'm going to try it anyway. Um, there were a bunch of scientists who got together and came up to God and said, God, I believe we don't need you anymore. We can do everything you can do, and we want to have prove it to you. And so God said, okay, let's have a man making contest. The only rule is you've got to make man out of dirt. And so the a scientist agrees, so we can do that, no problem. And so the scientist reached down to grab some dirt, and God says, no, 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 get your own dirt. There we go.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing about, you look at that word creation. He created everything out of nothing. You looking back, and I think that's when you think about miracles. Sometimes the conversation will go to evidence. Show me facts. Tell me a
Mhm.
story. And a lot of people have stories, um, but I personally don't have a whole lot of miracle stories. And even the few things that I could think back to when Josh called me and asked about doing this podcast with you, that I was thinking back of some different things where I believe that it was God that did it, but you can't prove it,
Right.
because of anything, even something that's very, something, I don't know, a friend of mine had a cancer, had a tumor, and it was seen. It was very obvious on the X-ray. The tumor was there, and it was in his colon, and they were going to go in and with do the colonoscopy and get part of it for a biopsy. And when they went, but they asked people to pray. They asked quite a few, lots of people to pray. Pray. This thing is a huge, huge tumor, and they don't know what they're going to do. So a couple of days went by. They go in to do the colonoscopy, and before they do the colonoscopy, they do another, some more imaging, with that, X-ray, just to sort of see what, where they're going, what all they're going to do, make the plans, and the tumor's gone. Now, of course, those that prayed for him said, look what God did. That's a miracle.
Right.
And then, of course, others could say maybe the first X-ray was wrong. It was a shadow. Or the human body heals itself all the time.
Right.
And so you can't really explain it. So really, a lot of talk. I think when we think about miracles, it has to, the conversation has to be really in the philosophical. Can they happen? Can they? And if God, if God exists, then yeah, miracles can happen.
I liked your description there, where God, I think that comes with where you said earlier, God is. It's easier to believe, and so it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah. If you believe in God, we believe in God, and I mean most Americans believe in God. It's becoming a smaller and smaller number. I mean, you can get into the details of all the little things that people argue about, but in generalities, most people believe in God.
Right.
And so if you have that much, then that's not that big of a stretch to believe in a miracle can happen.
I agree. That's a great way, I think, to kind of cap that off, because we don't want to drag it out too long.
Yeah.
We did have. I've been wanting to do this, and we're going to start with you.
Okay.
What was your first car?
My first car was
a.
How about shifting gears there, buddy? Man, wow.
Let me take the preacher hat off and think back to my 1985 Honda Accord.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. It wasn't my first.
It wasn't that nice. Was
it a 4-door?
I think so.
Because I had a 1984 4-door Honda Accord.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mine was blue. I remember that. I can't remember if it was a 4-door or a 2-door.
Surprisingly, mine was kind of a light blue, kind of just like a kind of not really a sky, lighter than a sky blue.
Oh yeah.
And
was that your first car?
No, actually, that was like my third or fourth car. That was after I moved up. So,
okay.
If you say what nice, that was a step up for me.
Yeah. So what was your first?
My first car was a 1980 Chevrolet Chevette.
There you go. I wish you had it today.
In a way, I do. I wish I had it where I could put a big motor in it and have some fun with it like that.
Oh, that's good. I can't remember, Josh. What was your first car?
Oh, I inherited the 76 Datsun B210 hatchback.
Right.
That's
right. I remember that now.
Honeycomb hubcaps on it.
Nice.
Was it automatic?
No, it was straight shift.
All right.
I'd love to have that car back.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
The old man still loves telling stories about how I locked it up, didn't have enough oil in her. I told that story 2 weeks ago, actually. I believe he did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you got to tell it now. You open that can of worms.
Oh no, I just didn't keep enough oil in it and locked her up going down Lipton Drive. Not much of a story to it.
Yeah.
No, we always want to get this. I've always wanted to get a personal feel for people, and it just seems like people enjoy talking about their first car or first something.
Absolutely.
So, probably should have opened with that.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Pastor Adam, you've probably been up since the crack of dawn this morning?
Yeah, we usually start early on Sundays. But it's the only day of the week I work, so it's not too bad. That's always the preacher joke. When really we work every day.
I've known a few preachers, and they would disagree with you and say that they work pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, we do. It is multiple hats we wear. The preaching, the church stuff that's public, and really most people don't. I mean, that's very minor part of our week.
Right.
1 or 2 hours on Sunday, or if we do midweek stuff. Most of our stuff is that's more the preaching part,
right.
The clergy stuff, and the other part's more of pastoral care and taking care of people, helping people, and the administrative stuff of actually, running the church. And so it's being on call, because you never know. I can get a phone call tonight, somebody with an emergency, but we love what I do. We definitely a calling, just like you do it. That's not a type of life that anyone can do. Wouldn't recommend it to most.
When did you know that you were supposed to be a pastor?
it just sort of happened. So that's why I sort of know it was God calling, because my dad was a pastor, and but he didn't become a pastor till I was a teenager, and so he felt that calling later in his life, and so I didn't grow up as a pastor's kid, but I did grow up in church, um, and so he became a pastor when I was a teenager, and then I went to college, and I went to a Bible college, um, but I started studying education. I wanted to be a teacher, um, but but then I just really just felt that that a call to ministry, and I really always loved local church ministry, and yeah. So after college, in 2002, graduated from college in Nashville, and came back. Came back here, and the church was looking for an assistant pastor, associate pastor role, and they offered that to me, and so I did that for about 12 years, and 8 years ago, my dad, he was still pastoring. That was at my dad's church. He was the pastor. I was associate, and he had a stroke, and he survived it, still living, still at the church, but is unable to preach. So I stepped in, and then they asked me to be the pastor when it was pretty clear that he wasn't going to come back and be able to, to work full time.
Right.
And so anyway, so I've been the pastor for 8 years now, and I really love it. I really, it's different. It's different every day, but I really enjoy. And just like enjoy helping people, and I don't have all the answers either, but just like everybody else, struggling Christian myself, trying to figure things out. But I really love studying the Bible, teaching the Bible, and just having discussions like this with you guys. I enjoy it. The people that have that aren't believers, I enjoy talking to them and answering questions, and I ask questions too, because I don't have all the answers.
You've probably run into this before. What do you say to somebody who doesn't believe in God, but they try to get into an argument with you, but you really you don't want to argue with them, but you want to stand up for your faith to an extent and say, what do you say? What do you just?
It really depends on the person. They because you want to help the person, and because each person is each of us have a soul, and and so it's hard. I mean, as a person, we all feel like we have to be defensive, and especially if we think we know something that's absolutely true, you want to defend it. But also, my goal isn't to win this argument. My goal is to help this person.
Right.
And knowing that most people that I talk to that aren't believers, but if they're having but I'm not going to be able to, convince everybody.
Right.
But I might, be part of their story. And kind of like the Bible, the Bible has illustrations of like how you plant a seed. Some people till the ground, some people sow the seed, some people water it, and others harvest it. But we pretty much understand how that works. But so when someone talks to me, I listen and see where they're coming from. Some people tell you, flat out they're an atheist. So I wonder, ask them why, and where that comes from. And sometimes when people are the people that I've talked to that are just flat out atheists, they get really defensive.
Yes.
And so I'm to myself, I'm thinking, why are you so mad at a God you don't believe in?
Agreed.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That does. Yeah. Very much so.
And so I'm thinking to myself, they're not really an atheist. They're mad. They're upset. Something's happened in their life, and it usually comes down to something happened when they were a kid, or That was their parents, used to go to church and something happened. They got mad at somebody, or their grandparents did, or they knew a Christian that was a hypocrite, all the stuff. And so, I try to see where they're coming from. And some people, of course, we're here, not just the Bible Belt, but the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Correct. Yeah.
And so you can't go. I know y'all, y'all in Red Bank, and I'm in Soddy Daisy. I mean, you can't go, drive down the road, 2 or 3 blocks, and there's a church, and then there's another. But it's not that way in most parts of America, and basically most parts of the world. So it's different. But one thing I try to do, though, is know that as I think all believers, we should try to win others to Christ. That's what that was part of, just like you asked about, Jesus giving authority to the disciples, to perform miracles. He also commissioned all of his followers to go and tell everyone else about him too.
Right.
And that's how we all found out about Jesus. Somebody told us about him. And then somebody, they heard from someone, and they heard from someone, and they heard from someone.
It's really, really good stuff.
It's about going back to the Bible Belt thing. Most people, I think, around here in Tennessee, they know God. They know about God. If they wanted to follow Jesus, they would.
Right.
They know enough about, just from, especially now, the internet age, you can find out anything. But there are some people, and I think, as the year of the world, I think, it's becoming more and more less Christian. Our culture is. So I'm seeing that there's more people who think they know about the Bible, or think they know about Christians or the church, but really they just know stories. They know what they've heard. They know what they've seen on TV and movies.
Right.
They've been in a church. They've been in churches for weddings and things, but most, because you think about, if all people know about church is what they see on TV, or what they know about Christians is what's on TV, I can't think of hardly any good Christian on TV. Mostly, if it's a character on a movie or something, that's the villain, that's the bad guy, it's the hypocrite, it's the one everybody makes fun of.
Right.
So one thing I try to do with people who I have a conversation with, who is they're possibly seeking answers, or they have an objection to Christianity, or want to know more about a topic or something. I want to make sure that not trying to win the argument, but at least make sure that if it's somebody that I may not ever talk to again, I want to make sure they have a true understanding of who Jesus was and is, and how, what real Christianity is. That we're not a bunch of people who are hateful bigots, that other people think that they think that churchgoers are. It's not who we are. We love people, because we don't think of ourselves as wonderful people. We know we're everyday people who need God, and really everyone is. Everyone is somebody we're helpless without Him. And that's why we tell others about Him, because it's really more of, why the other word for the gospel, the teachings of Jesus, is the good news.
Right.
Saying, hey, this is the good news. And I've heard one way of putting it is, that when you're sharing your faith, it's not me putting someone else down, saying, hey, I'm better than you. It's not that at all. It's like one beggar telling another beggar where the bread is.
Right. Oh wow, I like that analogy.
Yeah,
that's
it's
good.
like, hey, here's free food.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a free ticket to heaven.
I like that.
And so anyway, that's the way that I usually go about it. And If you know, obviously, and if you have any, would like to talk, talk about the Lord, or learn more about the Bible, or I'd love to sit down. I really enjoy talking to people, and sitting down with them, and just helping them on their journey as we're learning.
That's great.
Yeah.
We will put all your contact info, your home phone number.
Absolutely.
No. We'll put your contact information. And
Yeah.
again, what was your podcast called?
The Every Pastor Podcast. We've got about a dozen episodes out now, I think, and but it's for mostly for pastors, people in ministry, but really it's a leadership type thing. Most leaders, we talk about that kind of stuff, but really it's focused on pastors. So if you know of some pastors, be sure, feel free to send them a link to it. We've got a Facebook page, and
I will. I absolutely do. I know a few, and
hopefully it'll help some guys, because most of the pastors out there don't have people to talk to about their line of work. We don't have a water cooler like some places, and where you talk about stuff. And to think through, especially this past year, good grief, in everybody's life, every industry, everything's been insane this last year, and church is one of them.
Can we listen to your service on Facebook? You have to do a Facebook Live?
We stream our church service. The church, our church Facebook page is Covenant Church Lakeside, church's Facebook page, and we live stream our church services. And then they take that video feed and upload it to YouTube later as so people can access it that way too. But sometimes it takes the copyrighted music out, but but most of my sermons are not someone else's copyright. So
that's a good thing. Original content.
Yeah.
Well, we're very honored that you were a very special guest to come on and discuss miracles and a plethora of other things today. Sure was nice to getting to know you, and I believe you will probably have some people contact you if they have any questions. I appreciate it.
I hope so. I'm just a phone call away. If y'all want to talk about anything else, I would enjoy it.
We will
opportunity.
You will be put on speed dial.
There we go. Sounds good.
Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good evening.
Hey, thank you. You too.